You got ahead of me. Steve, welcome.
Martin, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, first question, easiest question. What's retirement like?
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, tell me more.
Get to spend more time with my family. I'm not on the road 3.5 days a week. And
Yeah.
I get to do things I like to do, which is golf and
Has
help folks like you.
Has the golf game improved?
It's improved, but it's not great. I wouldn't put any money on me.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to ever really be able to get any better, even if I have a full-time golfing opportunity in retirement.
Yeah.
So let's start off with just, how did you get involved with SAP and what was your first job and how did it evolve to where you were when you retired? Let's start with your first job at SAP. What was that?
It was a vice president of sales of a manufacturing team in the Northeast region.
Mm-hmm.
Before I came to SAP, I ran sales for a company. And to get into SAP, I had to take this role as a VP sales. And great experience. Got an opportunity to work in the organization led by Rob Enslin at the time. And president was Bill McDermott in North America before he became CEO.
Yeah.
So that was the first position. Then I went and became senior vice president, general manager of the Northeast, responsible for sales. And then I went and did a senior vice president of line of businesses, so all the different lines of businesses.
Right.
I did that for North America. And then I got my probably my favorite position of my career, which is the Chief Customer Officer for North America.
Yeah, so I want to touch on that one a little bit. So Chief Customer Officer. I mean, just the name itself. Tell me, how did the name even come about?
Well, we didn't create that. A lot of people have Chief Customer Officers.
Yeah.
But the idea of it is just to make sure your customers are successful and really listen to them.
And so this was a new position. You started with SAP probably a good decade ago now, right?
Yes. I would not say it's new. SAP had a Chief Customer Officer several times. It's a new strategy.
Yeah. So tell me, what exactly were the reasons you felt like you needed to kind of get a Chief Customer Officer program going and specifically be the Chief Customer Officer? What were the issues you were hearing from SAP clients that made you go, hey, we need to be listening to them to try and solve what?
That's an interesting question. So when I led the Northeast region, a lot of times I go to a customer and they would say, you want me to buy more? I haven't implemented everything I have, or I haven't seen the value yet,
right.
Or we have a lot of stuff on the shelf. Users aren't happy. And when you listen to that, then they would buy more. They still buy more. So if you step back and you think, at least I did, I stepped back and I was thinking, we come out with a strategy, we come out with solutions. If I was able to develop this role internally, this organization, we would be, if you will, the tip of the spear of leading and listening to our customers.
Right.
What are the issues that they're facing? What do they really want? And how do we help them get the value they thought they would get? That was the objective of the role and the groups that we had within the Chief Customer Office. Just help these customers and prospects get the outcomes they thought they would get.
Right. And I would think there were two kind of buckets, if you want, that were challenges. One, that something technology could actually solve for them, which makes SAP perfect for that because that's what you do, build software to solve solutions. But then there's also probably the component that speaks to people and process and data and all the things that the system or the technology doesn't necessarily fix. It's an enabler, it maybe supports it. How much of companies' problems were in the second bucket, like the people side of things and the process side?
A lot. Because if you're solving a problem, not a technology problem, but a inventory problem, for somebody that is looking at the inventory, that's great, but it may not be, what's the outcome to that for the company?
Right.
So we had to really dig into, okay, so we saw this inventory, what will that do for you? And what's the next thing that'll happen? Because, and I'll give you an example. There's a company that's a technology components manufacturer, $20 billion company. And they were having a problem in China. They had just opened up the plant. And it wasn't about the inventory. It was about they were losing customers because they weren't getting their product to the customers in time.
Right.
Well, the reason they weren't getting the product to the customers in time is because of the process they had. Right? They didn't know where the inventory was, so they would manufacture it again. And they may manufacture it at a place that's much further away than the end destination, or they didn't know it was in a warehouse closer to the customer.
Right.
And you have to ask those questions. It's not a technology. It's a process that they were going through. But if you just told the executives it's a process, they didn't want to hear that. They wanted to hear what's the information I can get real time so I can make business decisions so that this way my customers won't leave. They'll be happy, ecstatic with our customer service. In the middle level, they wanted to know, what is it that I can get that will help me know where this stuff's at,
Right.
so I can make sure that the end customer is successful. They were more in the nuts and bolts of how do I deliver it.
In more the day-to-day, like I need information real time to be able to make decisions.
It was really important for them.
Yeah.
So every level has their own issues. At the end of the day, we need to listen.
Yeah.
Not tell them this is what you do,
Right.
but ask them.
So since retirement, you've joined our advisory board, and again, it's been a pleasure having you there. Your advice is, as always, off the charts.
Thank you.
One of the things that I wanted to check in with you on is, as you've now seen it through our eyes, what we do is, and which is similar to your chief customer office, right?
Yeah.
You want to help the organizations maximize the investment they made in SAP. As you look at it through our eyes, what do you see the biggest challenges companies are facing that they need to do to kind of resolve or feel like they could spend money on the people and the process side of things to maximize the technology that they have?
I think that we're talking about from the customer side, right?
From the customer side, right?
I think the executives need to engage.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you have middle management that has serious issues, and the executives don't say this, but this is what they think. That's not my problem. Just get me the end information.
Right.
And sometimes that information doesn't come in time, right? So you're making a decision and it's already late, and it causes you to have an unhappy customer,
Right.
or you're not as profitable as you could be. So I think, number one, the executives need to engage and do a better job sharing with the whole organization the vision, and then what role they play, and what are the metrics to success.
Right.
I think if you talk to most people in companies, some of them may be able to talk about the vision, but they can't talk about exactly where they fit in, and they certainly can only talk about their metrics. They can't talk about the company's metrics to success.
And what do you say to customers, or specifically executives, because those are the ones we typically engage in these conversations with, when they say, I've already spent 10, 20, 100 million on implementing technology. Why do I need to still spend more money on making it work better for me? I have team members who know how to do that now. How do you convince them that they only know what they don't know what they don't know?
Well, the first thing I would ask them is, are you achieving the business outcomes you thought with the system? Does that help you get what you're trying to get? And typically they'll say, well, no, like I said earlier, we have stuff on the shelf. We're not getting the real-time information to make these business decisions. Here's examples why. And then they'll start sharing the business challenges that they have. And you can go into the president's letter and it'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Or the CEO letter in the annual report. And once they talk about their business, their challenges, then we can talk about how do we help them achieve it. But if we start with, this is what we do, this is how we do it, it turns them off.
Well, what do you say to a COO? Because this is a recent example where he said, I have 20 people with the word SAP in their title. Surely they should know how to optimize my environment. What do you say to a CEO that uses that as a reason not to invest in the organization?
I would say it's not about optimizing your environment. It's about, are you getting the business outcomes you want? And are the 20 people delivering the business outcomes that you need to
and
make
have
the
they done
company
it
better?
for the last 10 years?
And if they haven't, then why do you have 20 people with SAP title in there? Is there other things they could be doing?
Yeah. Well, what are the fears you think that hold companies back? And again, when I say companies, I mean executive decision makers from investing in something slightly less tangible. Like, it's one thing to invest in technology. I can very much say I'm going to spend $10 and I'm going to get this beautiful software. But if I'm saying I'm going to spend $10 to invest in my people, to learn and educate and get better at what they do, to learn how to drive this technology better, like, what do you think are their biggest fears as to why they may not do that?
Well, first and foremost is what's in their eyes, how big will this be? Right? Is this a little project or is this a big project? Second is, have I defined what is success? Right? Because they can invest, and typically they invest and they think they're going to get X, but there's never really defined, here's the metrics that define success. What does success look like? And third is, do they want to put their name next to something?
Right.
I mean,
and they've been burnt by consultants before, right? So we don't like using that word for ourselves for many reasons. One, mostly because we don't see ourselves as more practitioners.
Yeah.
But there's this thing called consultancy fatigue.
Yeah.
And there's also this notion that a lot of people have come in and promised ABC and they only got A out of it, right? And so I get that fear for sure. Is there a deeper human fear that's also playing into it, a fear of failure, or maybe I'm not necessarily good enough, or this is not going to be good enough? Like, do you sense that there is maybe deeper rooted human fears related to this?
Well, I
or
think,
other emotions.
I think if there's a fear of failure, it's tied to the cost.
Yeah.
Right. I just spent $3 million on this, and I've already spent $100 million on it, and I'm not getting what I thought I would get. Nobody wants that. Right. I think one of the concerns is the executives don't want to directly engage. And the most, as you know, better than I know, the most successful implementations to get the business outcomes have the entire executive team engaged, with the CEO leading a monthly meeting, finding out, do we hit the vision, the objectives? Is everybody accountable? And do the people know what they're doing and why they're doing it and how it impacts them and it impacts the company? And most importantly, how does it impact their customer?
Right.
Most executives don't want to commit their time to that because they have a million things going on.
Right. How much of this do you think is leadership not being deployed properly? And I mean leadership in terms of the skill, not necessarily the title, right? And what I mean by that is one of the biggest failures for any form of ERP implementation is usually the notion that there's not executive buy-in. But buy-in is one thing. I can have a lot of verbal buy-in, but leadership means I'm actually present, I'm engaging, I'm leading by example, I'm interacting, I'm helping solve the problem. That's a leadership trait. How much you think of is there a lack of leadership traits within some of the executives that just don't can't get them across that finish line, which is why so many ERPs fail, is because there's just potentially just a lack of leadership skill, capability, if you want.
I'm hesitant to call it leadership as much as I am to call it commitment. I just think that the executives here, that the CIO was heavily engaged in this with a business owner, right?
Yeah.
With a business executive to do this implementation to get these business outcomes. And the easiest thing to do is for everybody to say it's the CIO's responsibility.
Right.
And the CIO says, well, wait a minute, I handle the technology, but I need the business owners, the executives,
Right.
not the middle level, but the owners to say, here's what the outcomes we expect and to work on it as a team. Most executives that where the projects struggle kind of wipe their hands of it. And when they go into these executive meetings, they're not, as you just talked about, they're not really engaged. They're
Right.
saying, CIO, you're the one responsible. And the CIO is saying, if I implement this just on technology, you're not going to get the business outcomes. I need your people 100% committed. I need you 100% committed. I need the CEO to drive the meeting and say, tell me where we're having success. Tell me the challenges and tell me what I need to do as a CEO to help communicate to the organization what needs to take place.
Yeah. There's a famous saying that the 7 most expensive words in business is, we've always done it that way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How big you think that plays into the way people implement technology? Because they try to make the technology fit the old business model, the old business framework, versus maybe adapting the business to match the system and the best practices, right?
I think it's huge. I mean, massive, because the people that use the system, nobody likes change.
Yeah.
Nobody. And the people that use the system don't want it to change.
Right.
And the idea is today is to build a system that is not only going to be able to handle today's business environment and the outcomes you want, but also be flexible enough as the business changes to be handled in the future. The people that are hands-on typically don't want that because that's a massive change and it will continue to change.
Right.
You'll acquire companies, you'll sell companies, you'll go into different markets, you'll create new products or services. That takes a lot of change.
Right.
Your business model changes. To your point, most of the hands-on people don't want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think you're 100% right.
I love these conversations because these are the day-to-day things people struggle with, right?
Yeah.
They got to make a big decision to invest in a technology, and let's hope they pick a good one like SAP. And then they have to make the big decision to continue to investing.
Yeah.
Because that's often the case too. Like, okay, we've invested our millions and millions of dollars. We're good to go now.
Yeah.
And that's not true.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not continuously driving change and improvement and keeping, kind of holding that proverbial goal of, target out there to keep people moving in a better direction. And I think where we see a lot of challenges companies face is that when they go through that implementation, they take that big, deep breath.
Yeah.
Like, we've gone live.
Yeah.
Like, thank goodness it's done. And there's some truth to that for sure, right? We got to take a breath and celebrate the win. But we can't take our foot off the pedal. And that's what a lot of companies do. And then 20 years later, they're running the system the way they ran it 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, I would say the most successful companies are culturally focused on their people. So they're focused on their people and they're focused on the customers. If you're focused on your people and you're constantly upscaling your people, then you'll get them to not necessarily focus on just doing it the old way that they've always done it, which then will lead to, you talked about being able to not do the same thing 20 years from now.
Yeah.
Well, they'll be thinking bigger
Right.
because you're upscaling their skill set, because their skill set's going to have to change over time.
Right.
Especially if you bring young people into your organization.
Right.
If you constantly upgrade their skill set, number one, you have new leaders. Number two is they don't get bored with the company and want to jump ship. Number three is you're always in a position to look at the future of what your customers want.
Right.
And I think that is a culture-driven organization. And that's how you get yourself around, well, I'm running the same system the same way for 20 years, and I've customized it because I don't want to change what I'm doing. Right. You have to get people you have to invest in the people so they think bigger.
Right.
They have to feel comfortable that they can say what they want to say. And people are going to say, well, that doesn't make sense. You don't know anything about our business.
Right.
You're young.
Right.
Well, young people have great ideas. Those great ideas could lead to better success in the market for their customers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the diversity and knowledge and thought, right?
Yeah.
Okay, a completely different question, just something more personal. So if you've retired, you've had a great career, you've played different roles. If you had to take a step back and let's say 10 years ago and you had the perfect position or role to play, what would that look like and what would that be? What would you want to do?
I'd want to do the same thing I did the last 10 years, which is be the chief customer officer, because although I love the sales side of it, and I do, I love the strategy behind it and understanding the business objectives and then selling to that. I thought that was great. Focusing on customer success, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
I mean, there just isn't, because the relationship you build with not only the executive but the entire team is the feeling that you get when they've achieved the success is unbelievable.
Right.
And you keep that relationship forever. It's not a short-term relationship. And most of them aren't, even in the sales side, but there's a different feeling because you're focused on their success.
Yeah, and you're coming back to human nature, right? You're taking care of me. You're taking care of me and my feelings and my views and my life and my job.
Best job I ever had.
Yeah.
By far and away, it was the best job I ever had.
We often talk about one of our measures of success at the end of an initiative, besides all the monetary value that was saved, is did we get hugs on the way out? Did people didn't want us to leave?
Yeah.
That's just an amazing one, and it's just one of those that just warms the heart, and it makes you come back every time, right? Like, I want to do this again.
Yeah, and in that role as a customer officer, you're there in an internal meeting saying, listening to everything that your company's talking about and saying, well, what does the customer think about that? Or what is the prospect going to think about that? Not just what do we want to do? What we want is the end game, but what does the customer want?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if you focus on the customer, everything else will happen.
So speaking of customers in the future, where do you think things are going technologically?
Be more specific with that question.
Well, I mean, I think, the simple answer is AI for everything, right?
Yeah,
but we can include AI as part of our conversation, but like where do we go? Where does SAP go to keep bringing value to the customer?
I don't know that I want to talk technology as much as it's all about making it easier for the consumer or the customer.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I think SAP is focused on how do I make it easier. Apple, at the end of the day, you just touch a screen, right? That's what people want. That's what they're used to today.
Yeah.
And I think SAP's focused on how do I give that to our customers at all levels, but not only give them the ease of use, but give them predictability.
Mm-hmm. And agility.
Right. Agility is key, right? We talked about different business models. So how do I be agile? How do I predict the future of what the outcome's going to be?
Right.
And then how do I make it easy to use?
Yeah.
I think those are the three things that SAP is trying to drive innovation for their customers.
Right. Yeah. That's good, because it is more than technology. Technology is just an enabler.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about it, right? It should make life easier, but it should also be trying to move the business forward and engage the human component of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have any questions for me?
I just think for those people that don't know Reveal, I think it is probably one of, if not the best culture I've ever been around. You really take care of your people. You truly care about the customer. I mean, when we have these advisory board discussions, the focus on making the customer successful is second to none. And the people you have are extremely intelligent, and they're emotionally committed to their customer success and Reveal success. And it's refreshing because you don't hear focus on themselves.
Yeah.
Like, I've spent a lot of time interviewing, right, your folks to help.
Right.
And I never hear them say, well, how do I get this for myself?
Right.
It's always about the customer and then Reveal. So I applaud you and your leadership team. And I think any potential client that is looking for a partner to help them get the business outcomes that they're not achieving today should seriously consider Reveal, because you'll do the right thing for them. You don't go away, and you're committed to their success.
Wow, Steve, thank you. That was very nice. I think that's a mic drop right there.